The alarm bells rang through the human research ship New Horizon as Captain Jake Morrison rushed to the bridge. His coffee mug sat forgotten on his desk, still steaming in the empty ready room behind him. The emergency beacon had been broadcasting for 3 hours now, coming from the edge of the Kepler 442 system where no friendly ships should be. "What do we have, Rodriguez?" Jake asked his chief engineer, Tony Rodriguez, who was hunched over the sensor console. "It's not one of ours, Captain," Tony replied, his fingers dancing across the control panel. "The signal pattern is completely alien, but it's definitely a distress call." Dr. Lisa Kane looked up from her research station where she had been studying samples from their last planetary survey. Her brown hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and her lab coat showed small stains from her morning experiments. "Are we responding?" Jake nodded. "We have to. Space law requires all vessels to assist ships in distress, regardless of origin." He turned to his security chief, Ryan Bell, who was checking his weapon systems. "Ryan, prep a boarding party. Full diplomatic protocols, but stay ready for anything." The New Horizon changed course, its engines humming as they approached the source of the beacon. Through the main view screen, they could see a massive alien vessel drifting in space. It was unlike anything in human records. Dark metal with strange curves and what looked like weapon ports along its sides. "That's a warship," Ryan said quietly. "Look at those gun placements." "Maybe," Lisa said, studying the vessel through her scanner. "But it's badly damaged. See those hull breaches? They're venting atmosphere." Jake made his decision. "Open a channel, all frequencies." The communications officer, Lieutenant Amy Foster, worked her controls. "Channel open, sir. Unknown vessel, this is Captain Jake Morrison of the human ship New Horizon. We received your distress signal and are here to help. Please respond." For several minutes there was only static. Then the screen flickered, and an alien face appeared. The creature had scaled skin, golden eyes, and what looked like small horns along its forehead. When it spoke, the universal translator struggled to keep up. "Human vessel," the alien said, its voice deep and growling. "I am War Commander Kethra of the Zephyrian Empire. Our ship has suffered critical damage from an asteroid field. We require immediate assistance." Jake stood straighter. This was their first contact with this species. "We're prepared to help, Commander. We can send over repair teams and medical supplies." The alien's golden eyes narrowed. "You would help us?" "We are strangers to your kind. That's what we do," Jake replied simply. "Life is precious no matter what form it takes." On the screen they could see other aliens moving behind Commander Kethra. They all had the same scaled skin and predatory look, but they seemed to defer to their leader. Kethra himself was larger than the others, with darker scales and more prominent horns. "Very well," Kethra said after a pause. "You may send a small team, but know this, we are warriors. Do not mistake our need for help as weakness." "Understood," Jake replied. The screen went dark. Lisa was already gathering her equipment. "I'll need to go over there. Someone has to establish communication protocols and study their life support systems." Ryan shook his head. "Too dangerous. We don't know anything about these aliens." "That's exactly why I need to go," Lisa said firmly. "We can't help them if we don't understand their basic biology." Jake considered this. Lisa was right, but Ryan's concerns were valid too. "You'll go, but Ryan and his team will escort you, and at the first sign of trouble, you all come back." An hour later, Lisa found herself in a shuttle with Ryan and 2 security officers approaching the alien ship. The vessel was even more impressive up close, easily 3 times the size of the New Horizon. The docking port they approached looked like it could swallow their entire shuttle. "Remember," Ryan said as they prepared to board, "stay close to us. Don't touch anything unless Dr. Kane says it's safe." The airlock cycled, and they stepped into the alien ship. The corridors were wide and tall, clearly built for beings larger than humans. Strange symbols glowed along the walls, and the air had a metallic taste despite their breathing masks. War Commander Kethra was waiting for them, along with several other Zephyrians. Up close he was even more imposing, nearly 7 feet tall, with muscles visible beneath his scaled skin. His golden eyes seemed to glow in the dim light of the corridor. "Welcome aboard the Veltar," he said. "I am surprised being so small would venture into space." Ryan stepped forward, but Lisa moved past him. "Commander Kethra, I'm Dr. Lisa Kane. I'm here to help assess your ship's damage and see what we can do to repair it." Kethra looked down at her, and something strange happened. For a moment his confident expression wavered. His golden eyes met Lisa's brown ones, and then he looked away, almost as if he was uncomfortable. "You are the leader of this group?" he asked, still not looking directly at her. "No, I'm the scientist," Lisa replied. "But I'm the one who can help you fix your ship." The other Zephyrians exchanged glances. One of them, smaller than Kethra but still imposing, whispered something in their own language. Kethra growled back at him, but his eyes remained fixed on the wall behind Lisa's shoulder. "Very well," Kethra said. "Sub-Commander Velthos will show you to our engineering section. Our life support systems have been damaged and several crew members are injured." Lisa nodded and stepped forward to follow Velthos, but she noticed that Kethra actually took a step back as she approached. It was subtle, but unmistakable. This massive warrior, who commanded a ship full of armed soldiers, had just retreated from a human woman who barely came up to his chest. Ryan noticed it too. He caught Lisa's eye and raised an eyebrow. Lisa gave him a small nod. She had seen it as well. As they walked through the ship, Velthos explained the damage. "The asteroid field we passed through was more dense than our sensors indicated. Several impacts damaged our hull and disrupted our main power systems." Lisa listened, but part of her mind was still thinking about Kethra's reaction. She had dealt with aggressive personalities before, angry colonists, stubborn researchers, even hostile wildlife. But she had never seen someone react to her presence the way the Zephyrian commander had. The engineering section was a mess of sparking controls and emergency lighting. Lisa immediately began scanning the alien technology with her portable instruments. The designs were different from human systems, but the basic principles were the same. "This is repairable," she told Velthos. "We'll need to reroute power through the secondary systems and patch the hull breaches, but your ship should be spaceworthy again within a few days." Velthos looked relieved. "You have our gratitude, Dr. Kane. The commander will be pleased." But as Lisa worked, she couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to Kethra's strange behavior than simple unfamiliarity with humans. Something about her presence had affected him in a way that seemed to surprise even his own crew. She had no idea that this first meeting would change everything both species thought they knew about predators and prey. 2 days had passed since the humans began helping repair the Veltar. Dr. Lisa Kane had set up a temporary workspace in one of the Zephyrian ship's cargo bays, surrounded by both human and alien equipment. She was fascinated by the differences in their technology, but even more interested in the social dynamics she was observing. Tony Rodriguez wiped sweat from his forehead as he worked on rerouting power cables. "These aliens build everything twice as strong as they need to," he said. "Look at these conduits. They could handle 10 times the power load they're carrying." "Maybe they expect to take damage regularly," Lisa replied, not looking up from her scanner readings. "Their whole ship seems designed for combat." Ryan Bell approached them, having just finished his security patrol of the area. "Speaking of combat, have you noticed how they all act around their commander?" Lisa looked up. "What do you mean?" "Watch them," Ryan said, nodding toward a group of Zephyrian crew members working nearby. "See how they move when Kethra walks by?" Lisa observed the aliens as their commander entered the cargo bay. The effect was immediate and obvious. Every Zephyrian in the area stopped what they were doing and stepped aside. Not just moving out of the way, they actually backed up several steps, their heads lowered. It was like watching small animals react to a large predator. "It's more than just military discipline," Lisa murmured. "Look at their body language." Kethra walked through the space like he owned it, which technically he did. But there was something else. The way he carried himself. The way his golden eyes swept over his crew. The other Zephyrians wouldn't meet his gaze directly. "Commander?" Sub-Commander Velthos approached Kethra, but kept his distance. The human repairs are proceeding well. Dr. Kane estimates another day for full system restoration. Kethra nodded. Good. Where is the human scientist now? She is here, Commander, Velthos said, gesturing toward Lisa's work area. Lisa looked up as Kethra approached. She set down her scanner and walked toward him to give her report. Commander, we've restored 70% of your power grid. The hull breaches are sealed, and life support is stable throughout the ship. As she spoke, she maintained eye contact, with Kethra the way she would with any other person. It was basic politeness as far as humans were concerned. But the effect on the Zephyrian commander was immediate. Kethra's confident stride faltered. His golden eyes met hers for perhaps 3 seconds before he looked away, focusing on something over her left shoulder. His massive frame actually shifted, backward slightly. That is acceptable progress, he said, his voice less commanding than before. Lisa frowned. Is something wrong, Commander? You seem uncomfortable. The question seemed to surprise Kethra. He looked at her again, but once. Moore had to break eye contact quickly. I am not uncomfortable. Continue with your work. He turned and left the cargo bay more quickly than necessary. Lisa watched him go, then noticed that every Zephyrian in the area was staring at her with expressions she couldn't quite read. Dr. Kane, Velthos approached her cautiously. May I ask you something? Of course. How do you do that? Do what? Velthos glanced around at his fellow crew members before speaking. The commander is the strongest among us. In our society, strength is measured by one's ability to project dominance. Kethra has never met another being who could match his presence. Yet when I look at him, what? He cannot maintain eye contact. This has never happened before. Lisa was quiet for a moment, processing this information. Your society is based on dominance displays? All intelligent species understand the hierarchy of fear, Velthos explained. The strong dominate the weak through force of will. It is the natural order. Kethra sits at the apex because no creature can match his psychological strength. But humans don't work that way, Lisa said slowly. What do you mean? Lisa thought about how to explain it. We don't really have dominance hierarchies based on intimidation. At least, not the way you're describing. We cooperate more than we compete. Velthos looked confused. Then how do you determine leadership? Who decides when there is conflict? We talk about it. We vote. We find solutions that work for everyone. Lisa realized how strange this must sound to a species built around dominance. When I look at your commander, I'm not trying to challenge him or submit to him. I'm just trying to communicate. But the effect on him is undeniable, Velthos said. My crew is beginning to question things they have believed their entire lives. Ryan had been listening to this conversation with growing interest. Lisa, remember what happened when we first boarded? Kethra stepped back when you approached him. I noticed that too, Lisa said. But I assumed it was just unfamiliarity with humans. No, Velthos said firmly. Kethra has encountered dozens of unknown species. He has stared down creatures twice his size and made them submit through will alone. What you represent is something entirely different. Tony looked up from his work. Different how? Velthos struggled to find the words. When a predator meets another predator, one dominates and one submits. This is the way of things. But when the commander looks at Dr. Kane, he sees something that does not fit into this understanding. What does he see? Lisa asked. I do not know. But whatever it is, it unsettles him in a way I have never witnessed. That evening, Lisa was working alone in her temporary lab when she heard footsteps. She looked up to see Kethra standing in the doorway. He seemed to be gathering his courage for something. Dr. Kane, he said formally, I wish to speak with you. Of course, Commander. Please come in. Kethra entered the lab but stayed near the door. My crew tells me you are curious about our social structure. I am, Lisa said, setting down her equipment. I find it fascinating how different species develop different ways of organizing themselves. You must understand, Kethra said, still avoiding direct eye contact. Strength is everything to my people. The ability to make others submit through force of will alone, this determines one's place in society. And you're very strong, Lisa observed. I can see how your crew reacts to you. Yes. I have never met another being who could challenge my dominance, he paused. Until now. But I'm not challenging you, Lisa said gently. I have no interest in dominance games. That is what makes it so disturbing, Kethra admitted. You look at me as if I am simply another person, not a superior to submit to, not a threat to overcome. Just another person. Lisa began to understand. And that's not how predators are supposed to behave. No, predators either dominate or submit. There is no middle ground. Kethra finally looked directly at her, though it seemed to cost him effort. But you operate outside of these rules entirely. When I look into your eyes, I see something I cannot categorize or understand. What do you see? Kethra was quiet for a long moment. I see a being who has looked at danger and decided to walk toward it anyway. Not because you are stronger, not because you wish to dominate, but because you have calculated the risks and determined that moving forward is the correct choice. Lisa smiled. That sounds about right. It is the most terrifying thing I've ever encountered. As Kethra left the lab, Lisa realized that this first contact was revealing something profound about humanity's place in the galaxy. They weren't the strongest species, or the most aggressive, or the most technologically advanced, but they had something else, something that even apex predators found unsettling. They had the ability to look at impossible odds and keep moving forward anyway. Dr. Lisa Kane was deep in analysis when Tony Rodriguez burst into her makeshift laboratory aboard the Veltar. His face was flushed with excitement, and he was carrying a portable scanner that was beeping rapidly. Lisa, you need to see this, Tony said, setting the device down on her work table. I've been running background scans on the Zephyrians while we work, and I found something incredible. Lisa looked up from her notes about Zephyrian social behavior. What kind of something? Brain activity, Tony said, pulling up readings on his scanner. Look at these neural patterns when the Zephyrians interact with each other. The display showed wave patterns that pulsed in distinct rhythms. Lisa studied them carefully. These spikes here, they're synchronized between individuals. Exactly. When Kethra approaches one of his crew members, both their brain patterns shift. The subordinate's neural activity actually changes to match a submissive frequency. Lisa frowned. You're saying they're psychically connected? Not connected exactly, but they're definitely influencing each other on a subconscious level. It's like their brains are naturally tuned to project and receive dominant signals. That would explain a lot about their social structure, Lisa said. If they can literally sense who's stronger through brain patterns, then their hierarchy isn't just cultural, it's biological. Tony nodded enthusiastically. But here's the really interesting part. Watch what happens when you interact with them. Pulled up a new set of readings. These showing Lisa's own brain patterns alongside those of various Zephyrians. The difference was immediately obvious. Your neural frequency is completely different, Tony explained. While the Zephyrians are broadcasting dominance or submission signals, your brain is operating on an entirely separate wavelength. Lisa studied the patterns. Her brain activity was steady, focused, with none of the aggressive spikes or submissive dips that characterize the Zephyrian interactions. It's like we're speaking different languages, she murmured. They're trying to establish dominance hierarchies, but we're not even participating in that conversation. And look at this, Tony said, pulling up recordings from her conversations with Kethra. When you focus on something, really concentrate, your brain activity creates this steady, almost hypnotic pattern. The readings showed Lisa's neural activity during their discussions. When she was explaining something or working through a problem, her brain waves formed long, consistent patterns that seemed to intensify over time. What do you think that represents? Lisa asked. Determination, Tony said simply. Your species evolved as persistence hunters, right? You didn't need to be the fastest or strongest. You just needed to never give up. Before Lisa could respond, Alarms began blaring throughout the ship. Red lights flashed in the corridors, and they could hear Zephyrian voices shouting in their own language. Ryan Bell's voice crackled over their communicators. "All human personnel, we have incoming hostiles. 3 ships approaching fast, and they're not answering hails." Lisa and Tony grabbed their equipment and rushed to the nearest command center, where they found Kethra and his officers preparing for battle. The view screen showed 3 sleek vessels approaching the Veltar at high speed. "Pirates," Velthos explained to the humans. "They hunt damaged ships like scavengers." "Can you fight them off?" Ryan asked, arriving with 2 security officers. "Our weapons are still damaged," Kethra replied, his golden eyes focused on the tactical display. "We can resist for a time, but not long. The New Horizon is too far away to help." Captain Morrison's voice came through their communicators. "We're moving to intercept, but it'll take 20 minutes to reach you." "We do not have 20 minutes," Kethra said grimly. The first impact shook the ship as the pirates opened fire. Then came the sound of cutting tools against the hull. They were trying to board. "They will attempt to take prisoners for ransom," Velthos explained. "This is how pirates operate." "Not if we stop them," Lisa said calmly. Kethra looked at her in surprise. "Dr. Kane, you should retreat to a secure area. This is not your fight." "Actually, it is," Lisa replied. "We're all in this together now." The cutting sounds grew louder, and suddenly a section of the corridor wall exploded inward. Smoke filled the air as armed figures began pouring through the breach. The pirates were a mix of different species, some reptilian like the Zephyrians, others with fur or feathers, all carrying weapons. The first pirate through the hole was a massive creature with 4 arms and teeth like a shark. It roared something, in a language the translator couldn't identify, and raised a weapon toward Kethra, but Lisa stepped into its line of sight. The pirate stopped mid-roar, confused. Here was a small unarmed creature moving directly toward danger instead of away from it. Lisa's brown eyes met the pirate's yellow ones, and she simply kept walking forward. "Dr. Kane, get back," Ryan shouted, raising his own weapon, but Lisa didn't retreat. She approached the pirate with the same calm, methodical manner she used when studying a new specimen. Her scanner was still in her hand, but she wasn't treating it as a weapon. She was treating it as a tool, and the pirate as a problem to be solved. The 4-armed creature took a step backward, then another. Its roar died in its throat as it found itself unable to maintain eye contact with this strange, determined being that refused to show fear or aggression. Behind the first pirate, others began to hesitate. They had expected resistance or submission, the normal responses of prey species. Instead, they were facing something that didn't fit into their understanding of predator and prey dynamics. Lisa continued her steady advance. "You're blocking my path," she said to the lead pirate, her voice calm and matter-of-fact. "I need to get through to check the hull breach for structural damage." The pirate, easily 3 times her size and armed with weapons that could level a building, actually moved aside. Kethra and his warriors watched in amazement as Lisa walked past the boarding party toward the breach in the hull. The pirates, who moments before had been preparing to take hostages, now seemed uncertain about what to do. "She's not threatening them," Velthos whispered to Kethra. "But they're responding as if she's the most dangerous thing on the ship." "Because she is," Kethra replied quietly. "Look at her neural patterns." Tony's scanner was still running, showing Lisa's brain activity as she moved through the group of armed pirates. Her neural frequency hadn't changed. It remained that same steady, focused pattern he had identified earlier. "She's not afraid of them," Tony realized. "She's not angry either. She's just determined to get her job done." The lead pirate tried to regain control of the situation. It raised its weapon again and snarled something threatening, but when Lisa turned to look at it directly, the creature's aggressive posture crumbled. "You're interfering with emergency repairs," Lisa said simply. "That could endanger everyone on this ship, including your crew if we lose life support." The pirate lowered its weapon. Its companions began backing toward the breach they had created. "I don't understand what's happening," Ryan said over the communicator. "Evolution," Lisa replied. still studying the hull damage with her scanner. They evolved to hunt prey that either fights back or runs away. But humans evolved to do something else entirely. What's that? We just keep going. By the time Captain Morrison and the New Horizon arrived, the pirate ships were already retreating. The boarding party had withdrawn, apparently deciding that whatever was on the Veltar wasn't worth the trouble. Kethra found Lisa in the corridor, calmly documenting the hull breach with her instruments. "Dr. Kane," he said, his voice filled with something that might have been awe. "What you did, I have never seen anything like it." "I just did my job," Lisa replied. "The hull breach needed to be assessed for safety. You walked through a group of armed pirates to assess hull damage." "Yes. That's where the damage was." Kethra was quiet for a moment. "In all the galaxy, I have never encountered a species like yours. You do not dominate through strength or submit through weakness. You simply persist." Lisa looked up from her scanner. "Is that really so unusual?" "It is the most terrifying thing I have ever witnessed," Kethra said, "and I begin to understand why." As the repairs continued, word of the encounter spread through both crews. The humans had done something that defied everything the Zephyrians thought they knew about predator and prey relationships. They had redefined what it meant to be dangerous. The attack came without warning during the night cycle aboard the Veltar. Lisa Kane was in her temporary quarters, reviewing her notes about Zephyrian neural patterns, when the ship shuddered under weapons fire. This time the attackers weren't pirates looking for easy prey. They were something much worse. Emergency lights bathed the corridors in red as Lisa made her way toward the command center. She found Kethra and his officers gathered around tactical displays showing multiple enemy vessels. "Slavers," Velthos explained grimly when he saw her approach. "The Korthak Syndicate. They capture crews to sell in the outer rim markets." "How many ships?" Lisa asked, studying the display. "6 vessels, all armed with military-grade weapons," Kethra replied. "They're jamming our communications, so your ship cannot assist us." Ryan Bell arrived with his security team, looking grim. "Captain Morrison is trying to break through the interference, but these ships are much better equipped than the pirates." The Veltar shook again as another volley struck its hull. Warning lights flashed as systems began failing throughout the ship. "They're not trying to destroy us," Kethra observed. "They want the ship intact so they can capture the crew." "What's their usual strategy?" Lisa asked. "They disable the ship's main systems, then board with overwhelming force," Velthos explained. "They use fear tactics to break resistance quickly." "Fear tactics," Lisa repeated thoughtfully. The ship's lights flickered and went out, replaced by dim emergency lighting. In the darkness, they could hear the sound of cutting tools against the hull in multiple locations. "They're coming in from 4 different points," Ryan reported, checking his scanner. "My team can't cover all the breach points." "My warriors will defend the ship," Kethra declared, but his voice lacked its usual confidence. "Though, against these numbers, Commander," Lisa said quietly, "what did you tell me about predator hierarchies?" Kethra looked at her in the dim light. "That all species understand dominance and submission through fear. And what happens when the predator encounters something it can't categorize?" Before Kethra could answer, the first breach exploded open. Armed figures in dark armor began pouring through, their weapons sweeping the corridor. These weren't desperate pirates. They moved with military precision and overwhelming confidence. The lead slaver was a creature that stood nearly 8 feet tall, with thick armor plating and weapons that crackled with energy. It roared commands, in its own language, and its troops spread out to secure the area. Zephyrian warriors moved to intercept them, but Lisa could see the psychological effect immediately. Even Kethra's elite soldiers were hesitating when faced with the slavers' aggressive displays. The attackers were projecting dominance on a level that made even the Zephyrians' natural confidence waver. "They're too strong," Velthos whispered. "Their fear projection is overwhelming our warriors." But Lisa was already moving. She walked past the cowering Zephyrians toward the breach point where the slavers were advancing. Her steps were steady and unhurried, as if she was simply walking to another part of the ship for routine maintenance. "Dr. Kane, get back!" Ryan shouted, but she didn't stop. The lead slaver noticed her approach and turned its weapons toward this new threat. It let out a roar meant to freeze prey with terror, a sound that could break the will of most species in the galaxy. Lisa kept walking. The slaver's roar died away, as it realized its intimidation display was having no effect. This small, unarmed creature was advancing on it with the same calm determination she might show when approaching a lab experiment. "You're in my way," Lisa said simply, looking directly into the slaver's eyes. The massive creature took a step backward. Behind it, other slavers stopped their advance, confused by their leader's retreat. Lisa continued her approach. "This corridor leads to the engineering section. I need to check the power grid for damage from your weapons fire." The slaver raised its weapon, but something in Lisa's steady gaze made it hesitate. She wasn't showing fear, but she also wasn't showing aggression. She was showing something the slaver had never encountered: complete indifference to its threats. "I'm going to walk past you now," Lisa said, adjusting her scanner. "Please move aside." And the slaver did. The 8-foot-tall armored predator, equipped with weapons that could level a building, stepped aside to let a 5-foot-tall human scientist pass by. Kethra watched this impossible scene unfold, and suddenly, everything became clear. "She's not prey," he whispered to Velthos. "She's not even a predator in the way we understand it." "Then what is she?" "She's something that decided the outcome before the fight even started." Behind Lisa, the other slavers were beginning to back away from the breach point. Their formation was breaking down as they tried to understand what they were seeing. They had trained to overcome resistance through fear and violence, but they had no protocol for dealing with someone who simply ignored them. "Lisa," Tony Rodriguez called over the communicator. "What are you doing?" "Checking the power conduits," Lisa replied matter-of-factly. The weapons fire might have damaged the main grid. She was now standing directly among the slaver boarding party, calmly scanning the walls with her instruments, while armed killers stood around her in complete confusion. The lead slaver tried once more to assert dominance. It moved to block Lisa's path and raised its weapon directly at her head. Lisa looked up at it with mild annoyance. "You're blocking my light," she said. "I can't get accurate readings with you standing there." The slaver stared down at her for a long moment. In its eyes, Kethra could see something he recognized, the same confusion and unease that he felt whenever he tried to maintain eye contact with this human. Slowly, the slaver lowered its weapon and moved aside. "Thank you," Lisa said politely and returned to her work. At the other breach points, similar scenes were playing out. Ryan and his security team weren't fighting the slavers. They were simply going about their duties, treating the heavily armed attackers as minor inconveniences rather than deadly threats. "The hull breach in Section 7 needs to be sealed," Ryan reported to his team, walking past a group of confused slavers. "Tony, can you bring the welding equipment?" "On my way," Tony replied, carrying his tools through another group of attackers, who parted before him like water. The slavers had been prepared for resistance, for fear, for desperate fighting. They had not been prepared for a species that would treat them like furniture to be moved around while important work got done. "Commander," the lead slaver finally approached Kethra, its voice uncertain. "What manner of beings are these?" Kethra looked at the slaver leader, a creature that had terrorized dozens of star systems, and saw his own confusion reflected back at him. "They are humans," Kethra said slowly, "and I am beginning to understand what that truly means. They show no fear, but they also show no aggression. How do we respond to that?" "I don't think we can," Kethra admitted. "They operate outside of everything we understand about predator and prey relationships." The slaver looked around at its troops, who were standing in confused clusters while humans moved efficiently through their ranks. "They're not fighting us," the slaver said. "No, they're just getting their work done. But we're armed. We could kill them easily." "Could you?" Kethra asked. "Look at them, really look." The slaver followed Kethra's gaze to where Lisa was now discussing power grid repairs with Tony, completely ignoring the fact that she was surrounded by some of the most dangerous criminals in the galaxy. "When you look at her," Kethra said, quietly, "what do you see?" The slaver was quiet for a moment. I see a being that has already decided she's going to complete her task, regardless of what stands in her way. Yes, and that is the most terrifying thing in the universe, someone who has already calculated all the risks and decided to move forward anyway. We came here to capture slaves, the slaver said, sounding uncertain for the first time. But how do you capture something that doesn't acknowledge that it can be captured? As if to prove his point, Lisa approached them with her scanner. Excuse me, she said to the slaver leader. I need to check the structural integrity behind you. There might be microfractures from the weapon's fire. The slaver, without thinking, moved aside. Lisa completed her scan and made notes on her tablet. No significant damage here, she reported to Tony. The hull is still sound. She walked away, leaving two apex predators staring after her in complete bewilderment. I think, the slaver leader said slowly, we should find easier prey. That would be wise, Kethra agreed. As the slaver ships withdrew and communications were restored, Captain Morrison's voice came through clearly. Is everyone all right over there? We detected multiple hull breaches. We're fine, Captain, Lisa replied. Just some minor interruptions to our work schedule. Kethra looked around at his crew, all of whom were staring at the humans with something approaching awe. Velthos, he said quietly. Yes, Commander? I want to formally request an audience with the human leadership. Our empire needs to understand what we have encountered here. What shall I tell them we have learned? Kethra watched as Lisa returned to her routine maintenance tasks, completely unaffected by the fact that she had just faced down an entire boarding party of slavers through nothing more than determination to do her job. Tell them, Kethra said slowly, that we have discovered there is. 3 weeks later, Dr. Lisa Kane stood on the bridge of the New Horizon watching as the largest Zephyrian fleet in their recorded history approached Earth. Captain Jake Morrison had been in constant communication with both Earth Command and the Zephyrian Empire, trying to arrange what would become the most significant first contact event in human history. 67 ships, Tony Rodriguez reported from his sensor station. That's not an invasion fleet, it's a delegation. A very large delegation, Ryan Bell observed, checking the tactical displays. Earth defense is nervous about this many alien warships in our system. Lisa smiled as she watched the massive vessels take up positions around Earth's moon. They're not here to threaten us, they're here to learn. Captain Morrison joined her at the view screen. Hard to believe it all started with a simple rescue mission. Not so simple, it turns out, Lisa replied. The main screen flickered to life, showing the familiar scaled features of War Commander Kethra. But his expression was different now, less commanding, more curious. Captain Morrison, Kethra said formally, I request permission to transport to your vessel with a small delegation. We wish to speak with Dr. Kane. Permission granted, Commander. We'll prepare the main conference room. An hour later, Lisa found herself sitting across a table from Kethra and 5 other high-ranking Zephyrian officers. The aliens looked uncomfortable in the confined space, but they were clearly making an effort to adapt to human customs. Dr. Kane, Kethra began, I have spent the last 3 weeks explaining to the Zephyrian High Command what occurred aboard my vessel. They did not believe my reports. What changed their minds? Lisa asked. We conducted tests, said one of the other Zephyrians, an elderly female with silver-scaled features. I am Science Elder Mortha. We exposed volunteers from our species to recordings of human brain patterns. And? The effect was consistent across all subjects, Mortha continued. When exposed to human neural frequencies, particularly those showing focused determination, our people experienced what can only be described as instinctive recognition of an apex threat. Tony leaned forward. You mean they had the same reaction as Kethra? Exactly, but here is what troubled us most. The humans in these recordings were not demonstrating aggression or hostility. They were simply concentrating on tasks. Yet our warriors, our hunters, our strongest minds all responded as if facing mortal danger. Lisa considered this. What do you think it means? Kethra answered. It means that we have been wrong about the nature of predation for our entire evolutionary history. How so? We believed that the ultimate predator was the one who could dominate through fear and force, Kethra explained. The one who could make others submit through will alone. But your species has shown us something else entirely, which is that the true apex predator is the one that doesn't need to threaten, because it simply cannot be stopped. Science Elder Mortha activated a holographic display showing brain scan comparisons. When a Zephyrian encounters a threat, the brain patterns show either aggressive spikes or submissive patterns. But human patterns show something else, a steady, unbreaking focus that intensifies over time. It's like you've already made your decision before the encounter even begins. Another Zephyrian officer added, "You've calculated the risks, accepted the consequences, and committed to your course of action. There's no fear because you've already accounted for the possibility of failure and decided to proceed anyway." Lisa nodded slowly. "I suppose that's accurate. When we evolved as persistence hunters, we had to be able to track prey over vast distances and long periods of time. Giving up wasn't an option. And that evolutionary trait extended beyond hunting," Kethra said. "It became part of how you approach every challenge. You don't try to intimidate obstacles. You simply work around them or through them until you achieve your goal." Captain Morrison had been listening to this exchange with growing amazement. "Are you saying that our entire species accidentally developed a psychological profile that makes us appear dangerous to other intelligent life?" "Not dangerous in the way we understand danger," Mortha corrected. "Humans rarely display aggression or hostility, but you display something far more unsettling, inevitability. When you look at a human who has decided to accomplish something," Kethra added, "you don't see a threat that might hurt you. You see a force of nature that will continue moving forward regardless of what stands in its way." Tony grinned. "That's actually kind of awesome." "It is also why I am here," Kethra said, becoming more formal. "The Zephyrian Empire wishes to propose an alliance with humanity." "What kind of alliance?" Morrison asked. "We want to learn from you," Kethra replied simply. "For generations, we have built our society around the concept of dominance through force, but you have shown us that there is another way to be strong." "We're not particularly strong," Lisa pointed out. "Most of your warriors could overpower any human in direct combat." "Physical strength is not what we wish to learn," Mortha explained. "We want to understand how to approach problems the way humans do, how to persist when others would give up, how to find solutions instead of simply imposing will." "You want to learn to be stubborn?" Ryan asked with amusement. "We want to learn to be unstoppable," Kethra corrected. "There is a difference." "What would this alliance involve?" Morrison inquired. "Cultural exchange," Kethra said. "We would send our young ones to study human methods of problem-solving and persistence. In return, we offer our technology and our protection." "Protection from what?" "The galaxy is vast, Captain Morrison. There are threats out there that even the Zephyrian Empire cannot face alone. But we believe that humanity's unique approach to challenges combined with our military strength could create something unprecedented." Lisa looked around the table at the assembled Zephyrians. "You really think our stubbornness is that valuable?" "Dr. Kane," Kethra said, meeting her eyes directly for the first time since their initial encounter. "In the past month, I have watched your species face pirates, slavers, and hostile alien warriors. In each case, you achieved victory not through superior firepower or intimidation, but through simple refusal to be deterred from your goals. We were just doing our jobs." "Exactly. And that is what makes you terrifying to every predator species in the galaxy." Mortha activated another display. "We have begun sharing our initial findings with other allied species. The response has been unanimous. They all wish to meet these humans who redefined what it means to be dangerous. Half the galaxy wants to form alliances with you," Kethra added. "The other half wants to avoid you entirely." "Both reactions stem from the same realization," Mortha explained. "That humanity represents something new in galactic civilization, not a species that conquers through strength, but one that succeeds through absolute determination." Captain Morrison looked at Lisa. "What do you think, Doctor? Should we accept their proposal?" Lisa considered the question carefully. I think, she said finally, that we could learn a lot from each other. Your technology could help us explore the galaxy more effectively. And maybe we can teach your people that being unstoppable doesn't require being scary. Kethra made a sound that might have been laughter. Dr. Kane, I must tell you something important. What's that? You are still the most frightening being I have ever encountered, but I am beginning to understand that this is not a bad thing. Why is that? Because you are only frightening to those who stand in the way of progress, justice, or the protection of others. To those who need help, who seek knowledge, or who simply want to coexist peacefully, you are something else entirely. What am I to them? Hope, Kethra said simply. You are hope that there is always a way forward, no matter how impossible the situation appears. 6 months later, the first Zephyrian students arrived on Earth to study human determination and problem-solving techniques. In exchange, human scientists began working with Zephyrian technology to develop new methods of space exploration and peaceful contact with other species. Dr. Lisa Kane was appointed as the head of the new Human Zephyrian Cultural Exchange Program. Her first official act was to establish a simple principle for all interactions with newly discovered alien species. Treat every encounter as an opportunity to learn something new, and never let fear or aggression determine the outcome. As she often told her students, both human and alien, the universe is vast and full of challenges, but every challenge is just a problem waiting for someone stubborn enough to solve it. And in the years that followed, as humanity and its Zephyrian allies explored the galaxy together, they discovered that the combination of human persistence and alien wisdom could overcome obstacles that neither species could have faced alone. The apex predator, it turned out, wasn't the strongest or the most aggressive. It was the one that simply refused to give up. Captain Morrison made the final entry in his log. First contact with the Zephyrian Empire has resulted in an unprecedented alliance based on mutual respect and shared goals. Dr. Kane's initial assessment proved correct. Sometimes the most important discoveries come not from studying alien technology, but from understanding how different species view the universe itself. The Zephyrians have taught us that we possess qualities we never realized were unique. In return, we've shown them that